Your Honor, I believe there's been a mistake with today's docket. The bailiff's words made me look up from my notes. I watched the color drain from Derek Peterson's face as he recognized the judge presiding over his custody hearing. The same woman he'd watched his family destroy 8 years ago in a hospital room, when they forced her to sign away her rights to their newborn daughter. His lawyer was already standing. Your Honor, we need to request a different judge. There's clearly a conflict of— Sit down, counselor. I kept my voice steady, professional. I'll decide if there's a conflict. Derek's mother, the woman who'd called me trash while I was still bleeding from childbirth, gripped her son's arm. The same hands that had shoved legal documents in my face now trembled against her designer purse. The courtroom felt smaller than it had 5 minutes ago. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, and I could hear someone's nervous breathing from the gallery. I'd presided over hundreds of cases in this room: domestic disputes, custody battles, parents fighting over children like they were property to be divided. But none of them had been mine. Mrs. Peterson, I met her eyes directly. She flinched. Good. You and your son may approach the bench. Derek's attorney tried to interject, but I raised one hand. 8 years ago, I'd been a terrified 19-year-old college dropout with no family, no money, and no power to fight back. They'd known exactly how vulnerable I was when they walked into that hospital room with their lawyers and their ultimatums. Now Derek stood before me in his expensive suit, looking nothing like the boy who'd promised me forever before disappearing the moment I told him I was pregnant. His mother's Chanel perfume reached me across the bench, the same scent I remembered from that hospital room, mixing with antiseptic and my own tears. Your Honor, Derek's voice cracked. This isn't fair. You can't— Can't what? I leaned forward slightly. Can't do my job? Can't ensure that a child's welfare is properly evaluated? Or can't be impartial because 8 years ago, your family made sure I understood exactly how worthless I was? His mother's face went from pale to red. We should file an immediate complaint. This is judicial misconduct. Go ahead. I opened the case file in front of me, my hands perfectly steady, even though my heart was hammering. File whatever you want. But while you're at it, we'll be discussing why Child Protective Services was called to your home 3 times in the past year, why your granddaughter's school reports concerning behavioral changes, and why Derek's ex-wife is requesting full custody with supervised visitation only. The silence that followed was beautiful. You know what they say about karma? She doesn't just come back. She comes back wearing a robe and carrying a gavel. And sometimes she brings 8 years of law school, determination, and the power to finally protect the child she never stopped fighting for. My name is Elena Morgan, and this is the story of how I went from signing away my daughter in a hospital bed to deciding whether her father deserves to keep her. 8 years ago, I learned that love is a fairy tale, and family is whatever has the best lawyers. The contractions had started at 3 in the morning. By noon, I was alone in a delivery room at County General, gripping the rails of a hospital bed while a nurse I'd never met told me to breathe. Derek had left 2 hours earlier to handle something important. His phone went straight to voicemail. Even then, some stupid part of me believed he'd come back. Lily was born at 2:17 in the afternoon. 6 pounds, 4 ounces. Perfect. They placed her on my chest, and for exactly 43 seconds, I understood what people meant when they said love at first sight. Her tiny fingers wrapped around mine, and I made promises I thought I'd spend a lifetime keeping. Then the Petersons arrived. I didn't hear them coming. The epidural had left my legs numb and my head fuzzy, and I was trying to figure out how to get Lily to latch when the door opened. Vivian Peterson walked in like she owned the room, probably because the family had donated an entire wing to this hospital. Her husband Richard followed, his presence filling the space like expensive cologne and old money. Behind them came a man in a suit carrying a leather briefcase. Derek came last. He wouldn't look at me. We need to discuss your situation, Vivian said. No greeting, no congratulations. She didn't even glance at her granddaughter in my arms. Derek, my voice came out weak, pathetic. What's going on? He studied the floor tiles like they held the secrets of the universe. Vivian pulled a chair to my bedside, sitting with perfect posture. You're 22 years old, no college degree, no family, no job. You were living in Derek's apartment, which we own, by the way. You have no health insurance, no savings, no support system. She paused. You're not equipped to raise a child. I can learn, Derek and I. Derek has a future, Richard interrupted. His voice was the kind that closed business deals and crushed competition. Yale Law School, a career in corporate law. A life you cannot be part of. The lawyer opened his briefcase. Papers appeared on my bed tray, like they'd been waiting for this moment all along. Maybe they had. We're prepared to offer you $50,000, Vivian said. You sign over full parental rights. Derek raises Lily in a stable home. She gets the life she deserves. Derek? I looked at him again. Begged him with my eyes to say something, anything. He cleared his throat but didn't lift his gaze from those fascinating floor tiles. That silence was my answer. They talked for 30 minutes, used words like unstable and unfit, and child's best interest. The epidural was wearing off. My body ached. Lily had started crying, and I couldn't think straight. Vivian's voice became white noise punctuated by phrases designed to gut me. No support system, too young, doing the right thing. She'll have everything you can't give her. Just sign, Derek finally whispered. Please. The lawyer held out a pen. I held Lily for 20 minutes total, memorized her face, her smell, the tiny birthmark on her left shoulder. Then a nurse took her away, and I pressed the pen to paper. Vivian gathered the documents like closing a business transaction. She paused at the door, turned back. You'll thank us someday. Some women just aren't meant to be mothers. The door clicked shut. The bassinet beside my bed was empty. According to the state of California, I wasn't a mother anymore. I'd never been one at all. I stared at that empty bassinet until the sun went down. And even then, I couldn't look away. The first week, I kept expecting someone to bring her back. Like they'd realized they'd made a mistake. Like Derek would call and say he was sorry, that we'd figure it out together. He never called. My body still thought I had a baby. My breasts ached with milk no one needed. I'd wake up at 2 a.m. reaching for a child who wasn't there. The apartment Derek's family owned had an eviction notice on the door by day 10. Apparently, their generosity had limits. I moved into a studio above a laundromat with the $50,000 they'd paid me to disappear. Blood money. I should have refused it, thrown it in Vivian's face. But I needed to eat, and righteousness doesn't pay rent. By week 3, Derek had blocked my number, changed his email, his social media went private. I created fake accounts to see what I'd lost. That's when I found her, Madison Clark, 24, blonde, Yale graduate student. Her Instagram was public, full of their perfect life. There was Lily in a designer nursery, Lily at the park, Lily taking her first steps at 6 months old, 6 months I'd missed, with the caption, Our Little Miracle. Our. I stared at that word until it burned itself into my brain. Madison, who'd never felt Lily move inside her, who hadn't signed away her rights in a hospital bed, who got to be a mother while I got to be nothing. My lawyer was blunt when I finally scraped together enough money to consult one. You signed away your parental rights. Those documents are ironclad, witnessed, notarized. You have no legal standing. You are not her mother in the eyes of the law. But I am her mother. Not legally, I'm sorry. I found them at Morrison Park on a Saturday in October. Derek was pushing Lily on a baby swing, while Madison took pictures. I'd planned what to say 1,000 times. I just wanted to talk. Just wanted him to see what he'd done. Derek saw me first. His face went white, then hard. He pulled out his phone before I'd taken 3 steps. I just want to... Stay away from us. He scooped Lily out of the swing, holding her against his chest like I was the danger. I'm calling the police. Derek, please. She's... My daughter. No, Madison stepped between us. She's not. The police arrived in 6 minutes. 2 officers who looked at me like I was crazy. Maybe I was. Maybe that's what losing your child does to you. Ma'am, you need to leave these people alone, the older officer said. They have a restraining order being filed as we speak. I'm her mother. Not according to the legal documents we've been shown. If you continue this behavior, you'll be arrested for harassment and stalking. Do you understand? I understood perfectly. The system was rigged. The people with money wrote the rules, hired the lawyers, owned the judges. I'd been powerless because I'd had nothing, no family, no money, no influence. The Petersons had all 3, and they'd used them to erase me. That night, I threw away the acceptance letter from community college I'd been hoarding like a lifeline. Instead, I researched pre-law programs, law school requirements, what it took to become a judge. If I wanted power, I couldn't beg the system for mercy. I had to become the system itself. The law school admissions essay asked why I wanted to study law. I wrote 3 words: to fix everything. They accepted me anyway. I started classes 6 months after the park incident with nothing but student loans, rage, and a plan. The other students had parents who'd been lawyers, trust funds that covered tuition, time to join study groups, and network. I had the overnight shift at a 24-hour diner, weekend cleaning jobs, and 4 hours of sleep if I was lucky. My contracts professor pulled me aside after the first month. "Ms. Morgan, you're falling asleep in class." "I'm working 3 jobs, sir." "Perhaps you should reconsider your priorities." I didn't reconsider. I got better at hiding it. Family law became my obsession. While other students groaned about the reading load, I devoured every case about parental rights, child welfare, custody disputes. My annotations filled the margins with notes that had nothing to do with grades. Loophole here, precedent weak, system failed this child. Professor Martinez noticed during my second year. "You read these cases like they're personal." "They are," I said. I started therapy because the nightmares were getting worse. Lily's face at 6 months old in Madison's Instagram posts, the empty bassinet. Vivian's voice. Some women just aren't meant to be mothers. My therapist said I had unresolved trauma and postpartum PTSD. Like I needed a diagnosis to know I was broken, but therapy gave me something unexpected: clarity. "What do you want, Elena?" Dr. Richardson asked during our 10th session. "I want my daughter back." And if that's not possible, the answer came without thinking. I want to make sure what happened to me never happens to anyone else. Third year, I took every family law elective available, wrote my thesis on systemic failures in custody proceedings, graduated summa cum laude with job offers from 3 firms. I turned them all down for the district attorney's office. Prosecution, specifically the unit handling child abuse and neglect cases. My first trial was a father who'd broken his son's arm in 3 places. Defense argued it was an accident. I showed the jury medical records, previous CPS calls, a pattern of escalation. The father got 5 years and supervised visitation only. I went home and threw up from the adrenaline. Then I pulled out my law school loan statement, $80,000 in climbing, and didn't care about the number at all. The cases piled up. Mothers who chose drugs over their children, fathers who saw kids as punching bags, families who hid abuse behind closed doors, and expensive lawyers. I won most of them. The ones I lost kept me awake for weeks. "You're brutal in there," my supervisor said, after I'd been there 2 years. "The defense attorneys are terrified of you." Good, they should be. Late nights in my office, I'd read case files and see Lily's face. Every child I fought for was her. Every abusive parent I prosecuted was Derek's family. Every victory was proof I'd become something they never expected, someone who could fight back. 3 years after law school, I had a reputation: fierce, uncompromising, brilliant. The prosecutor who never settled, never backed down, never let a child go back to danger. I'd become someone who could protect the children the law had failed to protect, including, someday, my own. By year 4, defense attorneys knew my name before they saw my face. The prosecutor who didn't plea bargain on child welfare cases, who memorized every detail of every file, who cross-examined like she had something personal to prove. I did. I met Marcus at a case consultation. He was the court-appointed psychologist evaluating a 7-year-old who'd witnessed domestic violence. I expected the usual clinical detachment. Instead, he looked at me after the hearing and said, "You care about these kids like they're yours." "Don't we all?" I deflected. "No," he said, "we don't." Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into late-night conversations where I told him things I'd never said out loud. About the hospital, the signatures, the empty bassinet. Most men would have run. Marcus leaned closer. "You didn't give up," he said. "You transformed." I fell in love with him because he never asked me to be smaller, never suggested I was too intense or too driven. When I worked weekends, he brought me food and kissed my forehead. When I lost cases, he held me while I cried. When I won, He celebrated like they were his victories too. The judicial appointment came 3 years later. 30 years old, youngest family court judge in the district. Marcus opened champagne while I stared at the appointment letter, thinking about Vivian Peterson calling me unfit. "You're not thinking about them, are you?" Marcus knew me too well. "I'm thinking about everyone who told me I'd never be anything." "You're everything," he kissed my temple. "And you're going to save so many children." I did my best, compassionate to victims, merciless to abusers. Other judges called me harsh. I called it appropriate. Children deserved fierce advocates, not diplomatic ones. Marcus proposed on our 4-year anniversary. We were in my chambers, and he got down on one knee between case files and coffee cups. "I love you for who you've become. Not despite your past, but because of how you've transformed it. You turned pain into purpose. Marry me." I said yes before he finished talking. Our wedding was small. My new colleagues, Marcus's family, friends I'd made in the years since I'd stopped being the girl who signed away her rights. I wore white and meant it. This was a beginning, not an ending. But at night, I still scrolled through public records, through social media accounts that weren't quite private enough. Derek had married Madison 2 years after Lily's birth. They had 2 more children now, a boy and another girl. The photos showed a perfect family, suburban house, matching Christmas outfits, vacation photos from places I couldn't afford even with a judge's salary. Madison's smile got tighter every year. Her eyes lost something around year 5. I recognized the look, the exhaustion of performing happiness. And Lily, God Lily, 8 years old in the most recent photo, dark hair like mine, Derek's blue eyes. She stood slightly apart from her siblings, arms crossed, expression, careful, guarded. There was a sadness there that broke my heart, a wariness I understood intimately. I had power now, respect, a husband who loved me, a career that mattered. But I still couldn't reach my daughter. Monday morning started like any other. Coffee, case files, the familiar weight of my robe. I had 6 hearings scheduled, routine family court matters I could handle in my sleep. The 3rd file down made my hand freeze on the folder tab. Peterson vs. Peterson, custody dispute and emergency protective order. My mouth went dry. Peterson was a common name. It didn't mean anything. Except my fingers were already opening the file, and there it was. Derek James Peterson, respondent. Madison Clark Peterson, petitioner. The room tilted. I read the filing once, then again, then a 3rd time because the words kept rearranging themselves into nightmare fuel. Madison was filing for divorce and emergency custody of 3 minor children, Lily Marie Peterson, age 8, and twins Brandon and Sophie Peterson, age 5. Grounds: emotional abuse, child neglect, inappropriate favoritism, and allowing ongoing emotional abuse by paternal grandmother Vivian Peterson. The allegations about Lily specifically made my hands shake so badly I had to set the file down. Respondent consistently favors biological children over eldest child. Eldest child Lily is given fewer resources, less attention, and is frequently reminded by paternal grandmother that she should be grateful for the family's generosity. Respondent fails to intervene when his mother makes disparaging comments about Lily's biological mother in child's presence. Child shows signs of emotional distress, anxiety, and has begun therapy for low self-worth. There were photos attached. Lily's birthday party where her siblings got elaborate cakes and she got a store-bought cupcake. Christmas morning where the twins opened mountains of presents while Lily sat to the side with noticeably fewer gifts. A school report from her teacher. Lily is bright but withdrawn. She flinches when asked about her home life. They'd spent 8 years making my daughter feel like she wasn't enough, like she was the mistake, the reminder of Derek's past that didn't fit their perfect family portrait. I called Marcus from my chambers, voice shaking. "You have to recuse yourself," he said immediately, then after a pause, "But you won't." "I should. It's a clear conflict of interest. Any appeal would—" "Elena," his voice was gentle. "You've waited 8 years for a chance to protect her. If you recuse, who gets the case? Judge Morrison, who sides with wealthy families? Judge Chen, who thinks maternal alienation is a myth? You know the system. You know how the Petersons operate. I could lose my judgeship. This could ruin everything I've built. Or you could finally do what you became a judge to do, Protect your daughter. I hung up and stared at the file for 20 minutes. Professional ethics said recuse. Judicial conduct said recuse. Every law professor I'd ever had would say recuse. But Lily's face in those photos said stay. I made my decision. I'd preside over the case, but I'd be scrupulously professional, by the book, unimpeachable. If the Petersons wanted to challenge me, they'd find nothing to challenge except my competence. Thursday morning, I walked into my courtroom early, straightened my robe, reviewed the file one last time. The bailiff opened the doors at 9 sharp. Derek walked in with his attorney, his parents flanking him like generals preparing for war. He looked up at the bench, saw me, the color drained from his face like someone had opened a valve. His mother grabbed his arm. His attorney started to stand, and I smiled. Derek's attorney was on his feet before the bailiff finished announcing my entrance. Your Honor, we need to request a different judge. There's clearly a conflict of interest given your prior relationship with my client. I settled into my chair, taking my time arranging my notes. Let him stand there. Let Derek sweat. Counselor, please elaborate on this alleged conflict. You and Mr. Peterson were previously involved. 8 years ago, briefly, we have no ongoing relationship, financial entanglement, or social contact. Unless you can demonstrate actual bias in my rulings, your motion is denied. I looked directly at Derek. Sit down, counselor. Behind the defense table, Vivian Peterson gripped her purse like a weapon. Richard's face had turned an interesting shade of red. They'd come expecting to steamroll another judge with their money and connections. They'd forgotten I knew exactly who they were. Madison's attorney stood, organized and prepared. Your Honor, we'd like to present evidence regarding the children's living situation, specifically focusing on the differential treatment of the eldest child. The photos went up on the courtroom screen. Lily's 8th birthday party, her siblings with elaborate princess and superhero cakes, while she had a grocery store cupcake with a single candle. Christmas morning where the twins sat surrounded by wrapped presents, while Lily had 3 small gifts in the corner. School photos where her clothes were noticeably worn compared to her siblings' new outfits. We have testimony from Lily's teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, Madison's attorney continued. She notes that Lily frequently comes to school without proper supplies, appears anxious when discussing her home life, and once told her teacher she wished she wasn't the mistake child. I kept my face neutral, but my pen pressed so hard against my notepad, it nearly tore through the paper. Derek's attorney stood again. Your Honor, this is clearly a vindictive ex-wife weaponizing the court system during a bitter divorce. Children say things. Mrs. Peterson is exaggerating normal family dynamics to gain an advantage in custody proceedings. Counselor, my voice could have frozen water. I suggest you focus on evidence rather than conspiracy theories. Do you have any witnesses to contradict the teacher's testimony? Any documentation showing equal treatment of all 3 children? His silence was answer enough. We'll reconvene after a 15-minute recess. I made it to the hallway before Vivian intercepted me, Richard trailing behind her like an expensive shadow. She'd aged in 8 years, but her eyes still held the same cold contempt. You have no right to be involved in our family's business, she hissed, keeping her voice low enough that only I could hear. Actually, Mrs. Peterson, I have every right. It's called judicial authority. I smiled. Perhaps you should have considered that possibility before you pushed a vulnerable new mother into signing away her child. This is bias, clear judicial misconduct. We'll file complaints. File whatever you want, contact the Judicial Review Board. Hire investigators. Unlike 8 years ago, you can't intimidate me anymore. I stepped closer. And unlike 8 years ago, I have the power to protect my daughter from people like you. She's not your daughter, Vivian. Vivian spat. Legally, no, but biology doesn't forget, Mrs. Peterson, and neither do I. Back in the courtroom, I made my ruling clear and documented. I'm ordering a comprehensive custody evaluation by a court-appointed psychologist. I'm also appointing a guardian ad litem to represent the children's interests, specifically to interview each child separately and report their preferences and concerns. For the first time in 8 years, Lily was going to have a voice, and I was going to make sure someone finally listened. The guardian ad litem's report arrived on a Tuesday. I read it alone in my chambers, with the door locked and my hands shaking. Lily Peterson, age 8, presents as an anxious, withdrawn child who demonstrates hypervigilance and people-pleasing behaviors consistent with emotional neglect. When asked about her home life, she became tearful and stated, "I try to be good so they won't send me away. This child does not feel secure in her placement." The therapist's testimony came next, in camera to protect Lily's privacy. Dr. Sarah Chen had been seeing Lily for 6 months at Madison's insistence. "This child doesn't feel safe or loved," Dr. Chen said, her professional composure barely hiding her anger. "She believes she's a burden to her father and his family." In our last session, she drew a picture of her family. She drew herself outside the house, looking in through a window. I had to excuse myself from the bench. The bailiff thought I was ill. I wasn't. I was furious. The teachers painted the same picture. Lily arriving at school, hungry while her siblings bragged about elaborate breakfasts, homework incomplete because she didn't have supplies, clothes worn thin while Brandon and Sophie wore designer brands. One teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, testified that Lily once asked if there were families that adopted mistake children who didn't fit with their first families. Meanwhile, Derek's twins were enrolled in private piano lessons, soccer leagues, and summer camps. They had college funds, family vacations, birthday parties with ponies. Lily had therapy sessions to address her behavioral issues. Then Madison's attorney presented the recording. It was from a family dinner 6 months ago, captured accidentally on Madison's phone when she'd been recording the twins. Vivian's voice came through crystal clear. "Derek, you're being too soft on that child. She needs to understand she's not like Brandon and Sophie. That child isn't really yours anyway. She's tainted by that woman's blood. You're doing charity raising her. Don't let her forget it." The courtroom went silent. Even Derek's attorney looked sick. Madison took the stand the next day. She'd lost weight since the proceedings started, dark circles under her eyes. She looked like I'd felt 8 years ago, broken by the Peterson family machine. "I tried to love Lily like my own," she said, tears streaming down her face. But Vivian wouldn't allow it. She convinced Derek that showing Lily affection was betraying me and our biological children, that we needed to maintain boundaries, that Lily needed to know her place. "Can you give specific examples?" Madison's attorney asked gently. On Lily's 7th birthday, Vivian took her aside. I heard her tell Lily, "Your real mother didn't want you. You're lucky we took you in. Most people wouldn't bother with someone else's mistake." Madison wiped her eyes. Lily cried herself to sleep that night. When I tried to comfort her, Derek said I was undermining his mother's authority. I adjourned court early and locked myself in chambers. The professional mask shattered. I'd spent 8 years building walls, and they collapsed in minutes. Marcus found me an hour later, still crying. "She's been suffering this whole time," I said. "While I was in law school, at the DA's office, building my career, she was being destroyed by the same people who destroyed me." "This is why you became a judge," Marcus said quietly. "To protect children, the system failed." He was right. The evidence was overwhelming. Derek had failed Lily, exactly as his family had failed me. But this time, I could do something about it. Derek's new attorney was expensive. I could tell by the suit, the watch, and the arrogance. He stood for closing arguments with the confidence of someone who'd never lost a case he couldn't buy. "Your Honor, before we proceed, I must formally object to your continued presence on this case. My client has obtained documentation proving you are, in fact, the biological mother of the eldest child. This is an egregious conflict of interest that invalidates these entire proceedings." The courtroom erupted. Reporters in the gallery leaned forward. Derek's family looked triumphant. I waited for silence. Then I spoke. "Yes, Mr. Peterson and I have history. 8 years ago, his family arrived at my hospital room while I was recovering from childbirth. They called me unfit, unstable, and incapable. They offered me money to disappear. They pressured me to sign away my parental rights while I was drugged, exhausted, and vulnerable. I looked directly at Vivian. They were wrong about me then, and they're wrong about this case now." "But, Your Honor," the attorney started. "I'm not finished." My voice cut through the room. "This case isn't about me. It's about a little girl who spent 8 years being treated as less than her siblings. A child who goes to school hungry while her brother and sister eat elaborate breakfasts. A child whose own grandmother tells her she's tainted. A child who draws herself outside her family home, looking in through windows." "This is bias," Vivian shouted from the gallery. "You have no right to judge us. You were trash then, and you're trash now." "Bailiff," I didn't raise my voice. "Remove Mrs. Peterson for contempt of court." She screamed as security escorted her out. Richard followed, their expensive lawyer scrambling after them. Derek sat alone at his table, suddenly small without his family's armor. "Mr. Peterson," I stood. "I'm going to ask you some questions directly. Your attorney may object, but given the circumstances, I think the court deserves answers." His new lawyer looked panicked. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular. Noted. Mr. Peterson, please stand." Derek stood, and for a moment, I saw the boy who'd promised me forever before running away. Now he was a man who'd spent 8 years running from his own daughter. 8 years ago, you stood silent while your family destroyed a young woman's life, I said. Today, I'm asking you directly, under oath, do you love Lily? Of course I love all my children equally. That's not what I asked. I leaned forward. Do you love Lily, the child you and your family convinced her mother to abandon? The child who calls you dad, but knows she's not really yours? Do you love her? The silence stretched. Derek's mouth opened, closed. His hands gripped the table. He couldn't answer. The courtroom understood what his silence meant. Derek had never wanted Lily. His family had taken her to prove they could, to punish me, to demonstrate their power. She'd been their emotional hostage for 8 years, proof that the Petersons always won. Closing arguments, I said quietly, now. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, advocates, other judges who'd heard about the case. This wasn't just about custody anymore. It was about whether cruelty could be defeated by justice. The courtroom was silent as I prepared to deliver my ruling. I'd spent 3 nights writing it, making sure every word was legally unassailable. The Petersons would appeal. I'd made certain they'd lose. In the matter of Peterson versus Peterson, this court has reviewed extensive evidence regarding the welfare of 3 minor children. I kept my voice steady, professional. The evidence shows a clear pattern of differential treatment, emotional neglect, and psychological harm inflicted upon the eldest child, Lily Peterson. Derek's attorney started to stand. I continued without pausing. Primary physical and legal custody of all 3 children is awarded to Madison Peterson. Derek Peterson is granted supervised visitation only, pending completion of court-mandated parenting classes and individual therapy. Visitation may be expanded at the court's discretion based on documented progress. Vivian's gasp carried from the hallway where she'd been relegated after her contempt charge. Furthermore, Vivian and Richard Peterson are hereby prohibited from any contact with the minor children. This ban will remain in effect until such time as they complete family therapy, and the children's therapist determines contact would not be harmful. Your Honor, Derek's voice broke. I'm not finished. I looked at him directly. 8 years ago, your family convinced a young mother that she was unfit to raise her child. They used their money, their influence, and her vulnerability against her. Today, the evidence shows conclusively that they were the ones unfit to raise that child. I paused, letting that sink in. The irony is not lost on this court. The appeals came within 48 hours. My ruling was reviewed by 3 separate judges. All upheld it. I'd been meticulous, unemotional, perfectly legal. They couldn't find a single error. Madison found me in the courthouse cafeteria a week later. She looked lighter, younger, without the weight of the Peterson family crushing her. You saved Lily, she said quietly. I've been trying for years, but I didn't have the power. You did. You're giving her what she needs now, I said. That's what matters. Through Guardian ad litem reports over the following months, I watched Lily heal. Therapy helped. Equal treatment helped more. Madison enrolled all 3 children in the same activities, bought them equal gifts, loved them equally. Lily started smiling in photos. I processed everything with Marcus and Dr. Richardson. The victory, the loss, the complicated grief of protecting a daughter who would never know I was her mother. You can't be her mother, Dr. Richardson said gently during one session. Madison is doing that job, and doing it well. I know. But you were her protector. You were the person with power who chose to use it to save her. That matters. It did matter. I continued my work with renewed purpose. Every child I protected was Lily. Every abusive family I stopped was the Petersons. The work had meaning beyond my personal pain. 2 years passed. I rarely checked social media anymore. Lily was 11 now, thriving according to the quarterly reports Madison voluntarily sent the court. Derek had completed his classes, earned unsupervised visitation. His parents remained banned. Some things couldn't be fixed with therapy. The Mother's Day card arrived at my chambers, addressed to Judge Morgan with no return address. Inside was a child's drawing, a woman in judge's robes standing in front of a courthouse. The woman wore a smile. Above her, in careful cursive, were 4 words: "Thank you for protecting me." It was signed with a single letter, L. I framed it, hung it on my office wall between my law degree and my judicial appointment. Marcus found me staring at it that evening. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah, I meant it. I never got my daughter back, but I got something else." "What's that?" "The power to make sure no other woman gets forced into impossible choices by powerful families. The power to protect children from people who see them as property or punishment." I touched the frame gently, and the knowledge that when it mattered most, I chose her, I protected her. Even if she never knows I'm her mother, she knows someone fought for her. Marcus kissed my forehead. Some victories aren't about getting everything back. He was right. Some victories are about making sure the people who hurt you can never hurt anyone else again. About transforming pain into purpose. About being the person you needed when you were powerless. And sometimes that's enough. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.